Learn about Gemara. Today's daf is daf Chav Ches, and we are up to the Mishnah in the middle of the page. We're working our way through the processes. Once you find an object, how do you who do you return it to, and the identifying marks. In the last discussion we had the whole idea of Simonim. Is that from the Torah? Is that from the Rabbanon? And now we're up to the Mishnah, practically speaking. So how long do you have to continue searching and looking for its owner? Mishnah. Till when do you have to make these declarations? Until the neighbors are all aware. Now, which neighbors are we talking about here? We'll soon see. Now, you don't know who lost it. How in the world do you know who the neighbors are? Rabbi Yehuda says you have to go through three Tevim in Yerushalayim. You make this declaration, and we'll see later there's a special spot where they would come and make these announcements. You got to go three Tevim. And the Rishonim talk about why three Tevim, one Yom Tov, or three Tevim. The answer of one Yom Tov is maybe the guy didn't make it one Yom Tov. Not everybody went to every single Yom Tov. So why not just two? And the reason is because maybe he missed one, he came the second, and then he went to try to go home to see what's going on. And then came back next Yom Tov. After the third Yom Tov, we have further 7 days. Enough time for this person to go back home, wherever he came from, for this Oiler Egel. Shloisha takes 3 days. The Yachid Shloisha come back 3 days. The Yachid is Yom Echad. Now, what is Yachid Yom Echad? Is it be Machlek is a Shayim? Rashi and many Rishonim and Yachid means, and then you come back to Shloim, and you, the loser, says, "Oi, I lost X," and then hopefully the person who found it is still around, and then you make a shidduch. Rabbi Tam brings that Yachid means search. He brings another source, and Yachid means you go home for 3 days. While you're there, we'll give you 1 day to search, or less than a day to search, and then you travel back for 3 days. Says the Gemara. First thing is, let's understand Rameh. Tony, we learn Shcheinei Aveda, the Shcheinim of the. Says the Bryce says that what does it mean? The Shcheinim of the lost object. Why Shcheinei Aveda? What do you mean Shcheinim of the lost object? A bit more specific than our Mishnah. What does it mean? The neighbors are the one who lost Aveda. You know who lost it? Then bring it to the guy's house. What are you hanging around here for? The place where you found Aveda, until all the neighbors know. Now, even though what's the point? Because we have a rule, we're going to have a babasa and Reiv Korav. That Reiv Korav. The question is, you go after the Reiv or after the Korav, and here we're making an assumption that it came from somebody here in the neighborhood. It's a lost object, but even though the majority of people live farther away. But the idea is more that the neighbors will, if they all know, they'll all shushka and talk about it, and then word gets out to wherever.
But if we're choishish for Oilei Legel, what are you worried about the neighborhood? If you're worried about the neighborhood, why are you choishish for Oilei Legel?
Saying that even though the person who it is doesn't necessarily live here, but if enough people talk about it, word gets out. There's a network, and especially in Oilei Legel, you hear this guy lost and whatever, and it gets out. But we'll talk about the Oilei Legel in a second. But I mean, I have a simple question. You told me it takes 3 days to get to the most remotest parts of Eretz, but we know it's not correct. We learn when it comes to the rain season whether you start asking for rain and more tinies. So one day the third day of the Cheshbon, you already start asking for rain. The seventh, why should 15 days after the Yom Tov ended, so those who live in the remotest corner of Yisrael will have enough time to get home. So how can you say 3 days is a sufficient time? Can the Mikdash Rishon, in the first Mikdash, there was a multitude of Yidden living there, and can the Mikdash Sheni, when the populations were quite sparse? What's the difference? The Mikdash Rishon, then the Fishi sold to many Jews there. The description is in Tanakh. Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabim Kachol Hashem. So there were so many, like the sand and the sea, Leroy, so many people. So therefore, being cool high. Therefore, you need a lot more time. So many people traveling, so you can walk very, very slow. It takes 15 days to get back home. The Migdash Sheni Fisha Yisrael to it. There's a paucity of people. There weren't very people at all. Said by Ezra in the beginning, it says, Kol HaKol. You know how many Jews were in Yisrael at the beginning, second base of English. There's a total of Ke'echad Arba Riboy. Abba Riboy Alafin. There was 40,000 Sholosh Mea 300 V'Shishim 60. That's all there was. That's the whole population. fascinating Ramban in the beginning of Megillah, which you have to learn and see historically how it works. But like everyone else learns that nobody lived next to Yisrael. We lived everywhere, Spain, especially in Shushan, in the story of Purim, and that is why we have this whole concept of Arichayma. We want to remember Yerushalayim and Yisrael. We don't want to remember Yerushalayim was destroyed, so we remember it as well in this nest. That Yerushalayim it was desolate. The Ramban says all the way around. The vast majority of Jews lived in Israel at that time, which is very difficult to understand because this is 7 years later, and there's nobody living there. Well, after there's peace, why would they run away from Israel?
We're talking about it's only talking about Lahapros.
No, that's the furthest point, Lahapros, from Yerushalayim, and even there. So the Gemara is saying here that Rabbi Yosef is saying here there was less people, you could travel a lot quicker.
The river is in the bubble.
Yeah. So that's what people went back for oil leg. Or people went from Chutlos as well. It says another pasuk. They all lived there. What's the difference in the population? They lived all over Israel, so the distance is still the same. Makes it sense all the way around. Abai says. The fishy sold many Yidden, Tuva, the Mitzvah, they traveled together in groups. There was constant caravans going, the Ozli, Baby, Mama, Baby, they went travel by day and by night. So it's not only double the time, because when you didn't travel by night, it was like loy being a cool only much time. It's like plus 3 days. Why? Because they traveled the entire day, entire night. All the other caravans, when less people, because you didn't go at night, and even during the day, you stopped half day because you had to look for a place an inn or somewhere to spend the night. They don't go in groups. You don't find caravans. They go by day by night. Being a you need a lot more time. Tosfos asks here a question. He says, I don't understand. How can you tell me that even 15 days it takes to get from one end to the other end? We know that Yisrael is 400 parsa by 400 parsa. So this is the land of Israel, 400 parsa, which in a parsa is 4 mil. So we're talking about 1,600 mil by 1,600 kilometers by 1,600 kilometers. So how in the world, and a person can only travel 10 parsa a day, which is 40 mil. How in the world do you get to the remotest part of Israel within 15 days?
40 kilometers.
You can walk 40 kilometers a day.
Yeah, but remember, they're going on little tracks. They don't have big highways and cars.
You walk. From walking.
You're going on foot with a donkey.
That takes a question. And then Tosfos gets an answer that when we say 400 parts, it's not where everybody lived. That's if you include the forests and the mountains, but where people live is a lot closer than that. But this idea of just all being 400 parts and 400 parts is obviously very difficult to understand now that we can see the size of it, especially the width. So one of the Rishonim, the capital of Perach, writes that parsa is not 4 mil. Maybe a parsa here is 2 mil. Doesn't help as much, but once you start playing around with the size of a parsa, you can say that a parsa is a tenth of a mil. Once you start thinking a parsa is not the standard parsa. One of the answers is that how it's Yisrael, you say 400 by 400. First, width of Yisrael 400, but very hard to understand. Right. And look, even Tosfos said. Tosfos says from Yerushalayim to get to the Mediterranean is only a day's length, so it must be the other side is 39 days. From Yerushalayim to get to the other borders is 39 days. How? You read it, you feel like sometimes the Rishonim were never at Yisrael, so they were everything was just theory. But it says in one of those, I can't remember who says this. And when we say 400 parts, 400 parts means we take all the mountains and you level them out, and you take all the valleys and you bring them up, and you spread them out. With because the whole area concave, then it becomes 400 parts by 400 parts. So he pushed them together, made mountains, and he made hills, and he made things. Otherwise, very difficult to stand 400 by 400. The other ones say it's exaggeration, but Tosfos definitely does not believe in its exaggeration. And he wouldn't ask a question: how can you travel such a distance? What distance? We're talking about something else here. The Tosfos took it literally. Back to the Gemara. Rob Amr says, I don't care which place the Mishnah was. You're right, tax takes a lot longer, but it's not fair. The person that found it, he has to go home back to his family, has to go to work. So therefore, we don't have to. This is a third Yom Tov as well. They announced that you should have woken up earlier. The question is, what do you announce when you find something? Do you announce I found something, or do you actually announce what the article was? I found a shirt. So how much time do we give this person to go home and scour his home to see whether he lost something? A day. If we just say, I found something, and everybody goes home, you know how much time if you don't have no idea, and now you have no idea what you lost. So you're gonna have to go through the China, you have to go through your clothing and this exactly. Mashenkin, if we tell you that it was a garment, you go straight to the closet, and see whether you lost any garments or not. Must be the garment. Just some. I found something. Only 1 day is enough. I only look. You only what? Give him. You announce exactly what it is. Rava says no. I feel I can argue that no. You now just I found something. I didn't want to make you again. The balaved is not fair. This is the third Yom Tov, and he's dealing with this. Enough. 7 days is more than enough. It's adequate. So I learn. The first Yom Tov, he gets up and he makes his announcement. He says, this is the first Yom Tov. He announces the second Yom Tov. The third Yom Tov, he doesn't say which Yom Tov it is. So then everyone knows it was a code. It was a code that this is the last opportunity. Why doesn't he just say it's the third Yom Tov? We don't people to think they didn't hear him correctly. It says the second. I have full time. It's the second also. I think he said the first. That we don't care if he makes a mistake because still not one more yom to one opportunity. The beginning you used to announce 3 yom she was young, and after the last yom tov, 7 days. Today it's very unclear in learning through all the Rashis who actually makes the announcement. Is the guy who lost it or the guy who found it? Because here it sounds like clearly it's the guy who found it. Right? But before we said he go home 3 days, he looks for a day, he goes back 3 days. The yachris, that person who went home makes the announcement. I lost a shirt. And then, they make a shit of the guy who found it, comes over and says, I found it, let's work it out. It's very unclear who actually makes the announcements. Because here it sounds like the person who found it makes the announcements. Right here. He goes there and he declares, look what I he has to otherwise nobody knows who he is. But when we had before the 3 guys, he goes 3 days, with the yachis. What's he announcing? So maybe birthday. It's like a place everybody comes to. That's what sounds like Rashi. They say, "Oh, you're here, you're there." Exactly. So they like to both have to make announcements. Otherwise, how does anybody know that Yaakov? Why announce it? He just walks straight over to the guy who made the announcement. I found it. The yachis is the hachraz. You get up on a stone. He just traveled 3 days. Okay. Mishachara based on Mikdash, when the Bing was destroyed, she bought him Herimain. As soon as the sanctuary was destroyed, right away, he said, you want it to be rebuilt again. Mashiach should come. He's kiddush machizim, but he made it that Kaddish should announce it in shuls. And Midrash's machlekes, every single shul in town, or just one shul is enough, because people, gossip and the word will get out. Umishirabu anosim. Then you have these people who work for the government to force other people to pay taxes. If they see you found something, say, "Oh, you found something, it belongs to the state." This is Russia. Everything belongs to the state. But when you go to after the Anosim were bound, they said, no more announcements. Just pass the word quietly from what people you trust. You found something, let the word get out. My what happened? They believe that anything you find, you didn't work for it, it belongs to the government. Rabbi Ami once found a whole purse full of golden coins. By the committers, this where this Roman guy saw that Rabbi Ami was sitting in the hazel because Rabbi Ami saw the Roman guy and he was scared that the Roman guy would take the whole thing away and said, it goes to the government. And take for yourself the lab pasoi, and we're not pasoi, the Amri Aved Malka. They're the ones who have this rule that everybody finds goes to the government. Remember, we had the Gemara Shabbos, but the Parsoi were the worst. He was scared of the Parsoi. It was a Gittin of Shabbos. It was worse when they extinguished the candle because the Parsoi around it. It might have been Gittin. Don't remember. I'm forgetting. Somebody learned. Evan Toyin Yerushalayim, there was this stone in Yerushalayim was called the Evan Toyin, and this stone also was used if it rained. Mago say, tell me if this stone was covered with water, with water, I would no longer ask Mispal to Abish I forget. I would then go ask the Abish, you're flooding the place. Too much. And that's when the Chacham wrote a letter to him, if you would be the Abish is good, very close to Abish, would give you a putting chedim for you making demands. Whatever the Abish gives us, we're happy. Anyway, Kovish out of the enough of the go there. I found the way you go there. This guy would make an announcement, and this guy would give the Samanim that it's his. So here clearly, Omer the Machir is the guy who found the object. He's the one who makes an announcement. This is what we say. Go see whether the Evan HaToin is covered with water. So we see there's a Evan HaToin, the Evan where you made all these announcements. But the Mishnah. Oh, Aveda. What happened? The guy says he nominates what Aveda is, but he didn't say there's some money. We'll see the more in a minute. So does that prove that you announced I found something, or you announced actually what you found? You don't give them Baharamine a liar. Afapisha Amasimana. Even if he says Simana, you don't give him Shnemer, it says Adroisha Chicha Oisai Achet Tidish until you investigate him Imrama Humain Rama. So what does the Rama do? He has to bring agent. And there's either he brings agent witnesses that this is the object, or he brings witnesses that he's not a Rama. Says the Gemara, what do you announce? This is what we mentioned, we referred to before. You announce that you found something, you announce exactly what it was you found. A guy will choshes for a rame. When choshes rame, Rashi says this guy overheard a neighbor saying, "Oh, I lost my shirt," and you know the kind of shirt you wear. You see it, and you saw, it has a stain there they can never remove. And now that you go there to store and you hear a guy announce, "I found the shirt," you'll go over and take a chance that maybe this might be the shirt. So we're choshes for liars. And Nachman says, no, you can announce the shirt. You're not worried that people are going to go to this extent. In case of so, there's no end. There's no end. Even if you put all the precautions in place, if you're worried about a Rama you overheard, then maybe he'll guess. He guessed that it was a talus. He overheard the neighbor, the guy lost a shirt, and he knows it's a simon. He'll come over and say, "Oh, you found something? I lost my shirt." If you remind, there's no end to how far we go. Says the Gemara, so now we learned. Says the Mishnah, he said that Aveda didn't say Simone, all you said was, the Mishnah has to tell you that. If you say that, you just say, I found an article. And then the guy comes along and said, it was a shirt. So you would have thought that even though he didn't give some money, the fact that he knew it was a shirt, maybe that's enough to give it back to this person. But if you tell me that you announced, hey, I found a shirt, and the guy walks over and says, oh, I lost it. The Mishnah tell you don't give it back to the guy. Of course you don't give it back to him. There's no simon. And the problem with giving it back to him is that it might be a rightful owner somewhere else who has a simon, and you just stole it from that person. So you can't give it to this person. How could you? So yeah, my teacher, I've got the Amaglim shirt, kilo, but simon, I don't give it back to him. If you announce the shirt, this guy said shirt, and this guy said shirt, you have to say. If the guy announces, I found the shirt, you said you lost the shirt, you need a mission to tell you don't give it back to him. You announce the shirt, no loss. You announce the shirt. Yeah. No, he did give some money. Of course, he gave some money, and Mishnah said you don't give it back to him. Why not? He didn't say it's Simonin Mevokim. Now, there's a big machlekes of showing here what's going on there. So, if you read the Gemara literally, it sounds like if a guy gives a simon that's not it's a simon but not a strong one, we won't give it back to him unless you have Simonin Mevokim. But the Rambam, most of the Shayim learn that you give back even without Simonim Mevokim. The guy gives you the width, not a Simon Muvik. A Simon Muvik is an example where I say there's a hole right next to the letter Yud on this particular document. That's a Simon Muvik. But I tell you the width, which I can sometimes surmise what it is by just looking at it. That's a Simon She'ena Muvik. So they wanted someone to say that a Simon Muvik is Mahatayra, a Simon She'ena Muvik is Midrabanan. And we had this discussion before, Simonim for the Torah Rabbanan. And when it says over here that you don't give back with Simonim, we're talking about a guy who's a suspected Ramai. A suspected Ramai, you need Simonim Mevokim, or even a Vadei Ramai. You need Simonim Mevokim, not a Simon that's She'ena Muvik, because we don't trust you. Further, But I'm having somebody other eating like that. Rabbi Shani comes out of the bed and Mary lost it. And they said, "Some money a guy gave some money, he gave it to him straight away. But Sharab out of mind, all these liars. He's kinu sheha oimin like say bring witnesses. The lav ramayat you're not a ramay, but tell then you can take. Kihod avu der a papa. Ikis lechamar. He once lost a donkey. Bashkru, and they found it. Also the kamed Rabbi Rabbi. They came to Rabbi son Rabbi. He said, "Zil, I said lav ramayat. Bring me witnesses that you're not a ramay." From here, it seems that even for every person you have to bring witnesses, not just a suspected Ramay. Because this is the father of Papa, whole likely was never suspected of being a Ramay. Yet he said to him, "You want it? This is your onus of proof is on you." But Tul Azal Aibod, what it says, Amalu. So Rabbi Barabhuna twisted the question. He said, instead of saying to him, "Do you know this guy's honest?" He said to him, "Yedita made Ramay. You know that guy's a liar." And they thought that he said, "You know the guy's honest." I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I'm not. I'm not honest. The Papa's father was. He said, "What? You accused me of being a liar?" Not we went to say that you're not a rabbi. Makes sense. No way the Papa's father would have brought two witnesses to say, you get up in court and say, this guy's a liar. What do you bring them for? Obviously, he brought them to testify that he's an honest person. So they must have misunderstood what Papa was trying to say. They must have misunderstood. And so they're clarifying the words. They're not changing the story. They're clarifying the words.
They came to testify. They would pay attention to the question.
But he asked it like in a negative way. It's not the normal way of asking a question. So you come to the court. Are you saying that this man is an honest person? What he said was, "Are you saying this man is a dishonest person?" They didn't hear it. You hear only half words. So that's what they heard. Okay. Says the Gemara further. In other words, you have two things there. First, is in other words, because this logic that a person is not going to be witnesses to condemn himself, surely that's not what they meant. So it's not a question of kivin shehigit shuva and ochayz. Once you give your testimony, you can't change it. It's impossible. That's what they meant. They said it was a mistake here. Other Rishonim learned the Ritva said that this all had to happen because otherwise it's a question of kivin shehigit shuva and ochayz. You can't change your story, which means that the Ritva holds that even though it was compelling logic, that's not what they meant. That's not good enough. In fact, that's what they said. It's the words that count most of the Ritva said. So therefore, if it wouldn't have been that Dibur, they right away said, "Hey, we didn't really, we never meant that at all. We meant the other way around." And it wouldn't have been Dibur, even though logically that's what they meant. It wouldn't have helped. Next Mishnah. Okay, you found something. What happens? This thing has to be fed and taken care of. So there's a lot of work involved. Go ahead and take care of it. In other words, get it to work. You'll have some revenue and use that revenue to take care of like the animal, let it plow, let it milk, and then you'll use the proceeds to take care, maintain the animal. We'll see for how long. And this is a better way because the original owner would rather have his animal back than sell it and you give him the money. But something that does not produce the revenue and therefore will cost you, then you must sell it. It says you should return it to him. You should calculate, work out what's the best way to give it back to him. Because if you're going to spend money and keep a ledger, sometimes it could be by the time you give it back to him, he owe you money instead of everything else. But actually, the expression you pay him only half. Not much of a shava. There we go. What should be with the money? What do you do with the money? The Papa says he's damaged, but you can use it. So therefore, you become like a shomer, like a shoyel. Therefore, you move the chayber yourself. If you lost it, you're responsible because now that you're taking care of it, you have a use of the money. You're chayber. But Kiva says like he's damaged, but you have no right to use the money. But you move the chayber, you only shemechin, you're not chayber. Says the Gemara, let's say, okay, there's a revenue coming in. I got to take care of this animal forever until I find the owner. I'm not going to I'm going 12 months. Anything which produces, because then part of a chamor, metapel ben, you deal with it, add your basically 12 months. From here on in, sham the main, you assess the value, and umanich, you take the money, set it aside. Rashi learns here, you sell it to somebody else. You shouldn't sell it to yourself because then it doesn't look right, and maybe you cheated what the value is. Other Rishonim say you can even take it yourself. we said by Baal Tzedakah that a guy by Tzedakah should never change the money to himself. He should always change for others because we don't trust you. Here it's different because if the guy is not to be trusted, then he won't give the Aveda back in the first place. The fact that he's holding the Aveda and looking for the owner tells us he's an honest person. So in this case, we can do. Anyway,
It doesn't get to keep it after 3 months.
he has to turn into money. It has to turn into money. It's not his. At the end of the day, it's not his. This is what I'm asking. What do you do? Now the next stage. You went to your team, you couldn't find the owner. 12 months go by, you have to turn in money and put the money in a safe and wait till you find the owner until a Navi comes.
Why isn't it his?
Why isn't it his? Because there's a simon. There's a simon. If there's no simon, we'll say you can keep it because by now he's definitely Yayish. And the question is when you picked it up, was it Yayish or not? And Yesh was not a Yesh. But if there's a simon, you have to forever.
You put it in the basement, has a deposit box for Achiori.
It must be, or every person's house he had, if you will. So this is what I said. I go live calves and young donkeys, which aren't really useful. Then 3 months, and that's it. You just assess the value, and you put them aside. Geese and what do you call it? And roosters and what do you call it? To my roosters who cannot bring any revenue because they don't lay eggs. The metapaben shloishiyam. Male chickens, you metapo 30 days. And that's it. Because it's costing you and you have nothing from it. A tanagelis is like a large behemoth. A tanagelis is a hen. They produce eggs and you can have revenue. Therefore, it's the same thing like a behemoth gasa. 12 months you have to take care of it. Time we learned in a brisa, but this brisa is a little bit different. Tanagelis is a behemoth gasa, 12 months. Okay, because they produce. The menu says and you put aside for the yoke. A golim v'siyochi, when it comes to young calves or young donkeys, you metapla 30 days. Herein, shom the man, you assess the value umanichin. So here it says 30 days. The previous price said 3 months. Which before said 30 days, it's harder than the income from them. You deal with it for 3 days. And then you assess the value and you put it aside. The numbers don't gel. Before it says 3 months, here it says 30 days. And after before it said 30 days, now it says 3 days. If you have plenty of where to graze, then it's not so difficult. Then we say 3 months. If you have to feed it, then 30 days. If they're big ones, they eat a lot, 3 days, and that's it. Because there's no income coming from it. The small ones, you can hold on to it a little bit longer. That's how Rashi learns. Other Rashi learns exactly the opposite. That big ones can fend for themselves, so therefore you can have them 30 days. Small ones, you have to feed them the whole time, then 3 days. Then if it doesn't, very hard to understand the Mishnah. At the end of the day, no matter what the Aveda is, you sell it. At the end of the day, no matter what the Aveda is, you sell it. So if you sell it, why does the Mishnah say if it produces? You work with it. If it doesn't, you sell it. All cases sell. The question is only when. After 12 months, after 3 months. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it seems the Mishnah is sort of suggesting one thing, but turns out to be something else. If you read the Mishnah, you think, well, this you don't sell at all, and this you will sell. It turns out to be you sell everything. The question is, how long do you have to hold on to it and maintain it? A little bit difficult to understand language.